very special treat. I'm the swing man. She's the first lady of swing for me. Comes to us from Paris, France. We were warm welcome the first time in Tokyo. Very lovely. Sarah Petronio. Let's hear it. Sarah!
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Tell me what you just said. You can edit, but it will help us get along the way.
So the reason I want to do all these interviews is for the tap dancer that hasn't been born yet.
Yeah.
The tap dancer that may.
And I hope you're working on that.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
One
okay,
step at a
well,
time. We're negotiating.
Okay. Sorry about that.
I just remember being on the island of Montreal and being so hungry for any piece of information that I can get.
Yeah.
And it's just, you never know what sticks in people's minds.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm very much interested in the history of it, but I'm mostly interested in your perspective on the dance. For example, no maps on my taps. I was watching it the other day, and this thing Chuck Green said, dance has got to have a story. Dance has got to have a personality, and just like that little thing, just flick the switch.
I think that's quite important. But not everything is important. Nothing is important, but everything is important. So everyone has a story to tell. I think when a lot of young dancers like going into tap now they're going to tap to learn as much of the steps that they can, so they can do all these steps. Fine, wonderful. I think you reach a point when on stage, when you're performing and stuff, what does that soloist, group dancing is choreography, you know all about that. You've worked with the biggest companies, you've done all kinds of things. I think from my perspective, because you said what is my perspective, my perspective comes from a different place. Like, look at us here, we're sitting in my cellar, and my tap connection started here in Paris. And I was so happy to find this cellar, as part of a cave, they call it. Because my connection to tap from the beginning, and then I'll come to all the other young dancers and stuff, because I learned about that in the process of becoming a tap dancer also. My connection to tap dancing didn't start when I was born in India. I was born and brought up in India, spent 19 years there. I always danced. So already, talking about my perspective, I came into tap dancing as a dancer. Not studied dance. There were no dance schools in India there were little gymnases that taught a lady would visit and teach ballet dancing, but that jazz was not even known at the time. Even in America, it wasn't yet called jazz dance. It kind of became that way after the, I don't want to go into the jazz dance, they have their own story to tell. So I came into tap dancing as a dancer. A simple danced all my life. Every ceremony in India, in the streets, people are always dancing. Everywhere. You give puja, you give offerings, you're dancing.
Yeah.
As we're talking, we can be dancing and talking, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, everything has rhythm. I did a lot of rock and roll, a lot of swing dancing. That's where I was coming from. But in my house, from the beginning, I was very connected to jazz music, you see? Now people say, oh, jazz, yeah. Fine, wonderful. My connection was through jazz, because my brother was a jazz pianist. I sang a little bit in his trio now and then. You know, I'm not saying I was a big singer, I loved it, I did. I was young. But I met and was formed, I think, musically through jazz, and it remained my link to the dance. Some people are linked to the dance with Irish folk dancing, Spanish folk dancing. That's what's wonderful about tap dancing. That's what I said the other night. I was trying to all these people said, look at the styles. Look at the styles, and what a privilege. What a privilege to be in a dance form, because it has become a dance form and respected as such. Was not respected as such for a long time, even here, but I'm switching many, see I have too many stories to tell. We had often jam sessions at the house, and all the friendly musicians came, saxophone players and everything, and I used to play the box bass, the bass box we used to play it, because we didn't have a bass, but we needed a doom, we needed the sound. So we constructed, that was quite common in certain areas, a big tea chest in which you had a hole in the middle, the export-import tea chest, beautiful wood at the time. You put a gut in the cat gut and a pole that you held on a little thing that caught it. So you had this pole, you stood up there, you put your leg on the box, and you could control this.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
know,
Yeah.
Everywhere, maybe New Orleans still has that. I mean, it was, hey. So that's where I was coming from. Was always winning little competitions of twist and this and that and waltz. Okay. Then I went to America, immigrated. That's another whole story, and that's going to be in my book, From Bombay to Brooklyn.
Can't wait to read it.
I must write it. I've started so many times, I'm half recorded, whatever.
Yeah.
Little stories. No, that's my life. That one part. Then we came to Paris.
How old were you?
When we came to Paris, I don't know, 25, 26, 27, 20. Because our son was born, so I married very early. Too many stories. In my 20s, let's put it that way, or late 20s. So let's put it that way too. Until my late 20s, I had never tap danced.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's
a good question.
Yeah.
Because never thought about it that way. I was not interested in tap dancing, see? We saw movies in India, everybody, because there too is Bollywood, it's all music. Films were important. And we saw all the American films, Fred Astaire, and it was like, wow, But we were not connected with all those people in top hats and sometimes when Gene Kelly came on and he was dancing in the street with the Nicholas brothers, that we can connect to. It's not saying one is better than the other. It's just, But a lot of the people, when I went back to India, many years later, I went to do I think I have a poster somewhere, the Jazz Yatra. I said I would go back to India dancing, because at that time I was tap dancing. And I went back to the Jazz Yatra festivals, music, jazz festivals. And I had some very interesting things there too. They had never seen a tap dancer.
Yeah.
And I'll just tell you, because we're talking stories, I know I'm going all over the place, but it'll come back to Paris. We were in Bombay, 4,000 people, outdoor, big festival. Not just me. They asked me to come because they had met, and come. I said, okay. And they had musicians from Montreux, Switzerland, from different places. And there was a group called Four on the Floor. 4 musicians came from Australia. I'm saying all that because very wonderful experiences happened. So here we were in Bombay, somewhere in Bombay, and there was an article about me in the Indian Times. Bombay girl comes back, like it was really funny. And I'm like, oh gosh, okay. And a lot of people came to say, oh, I remember you, all this kind of stuff. Well, fine. So somewhere in Bombay, a huge Maidan, a huge field they had done for the Jazz Fest. About 4,000 people sitting and everything. And there was a group from Switzerland playing. And like I said, the Australian, and Kenny Barron was playing at this festival at this time too. There was they didn't know what tap was, and I was like, I'm coming here to tap, and I loved the music, and I just did, I just danced. I just danced. I had my taps and I just danced. I danced what I felt, I danced with the music. I can't remember what number I called, and there's no rehearsal, there's nothing. It was an experience for me, I'm talking about. So I got out there and I started dancing, doing my tap and making a story happen, getting the rhythms going. Simplicity, I didn't know that much. I didn't know fancy steps at all. I didn't do trenches. I didn't know all those things. But I was using my feet, really, because it interested me now, And I started to practice these things, basics.
Yeah.
That's all I knew, basics. And then when Jimmy and I came together, he said, "You must know your basics." I said, "Ooh."
Yeah.
It was reassuring to me. No wonder we connected so strong. So I was dancing, and the drummer, I called the drummer in, the bass player paid, I was dancing, and it was very quiet, 4,000 people, because they themselves didn't know what this was.
Yeah.
There's this beautiful woman, I guess I must have been wearing some pretty little shorts, or whatever I was wearing, and they saw this woman was coming and dancing, and I was dancing and digging it in the music, trying to bring it closer and into the music. And then, bit by bit, I'm looking out there. It was a mind blower for me. One of my experiences I'm telling you about. I was watching, and rows of people. Some were sitting on the ground, some were sitting on chairs. It was like a wave. Yeah. Like little by little heads were coming up. And I said, what's... dancing, And then, in the end, I realized that someone was saying, they didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. From 4,000. They saw this woman dancing, and I was a dancer, like you all are dancers. I was dancing. They heard sounds. They thought it was the percussion. Yeah. You see, but somehow or the other, little by little, I'm seeing these heads come up. They realized that this person is dancing with her feet, and all of a sudden I was terrified. Oh, in the beginning I said, what were they looking at, And it was like a way that it's using the feet, Yeah. And that was like for them the first time they had seen that kind of dance. So then I realized, oh my goodness, I'm tap dancing. It's the first time they've seen tap dancing. And I call out to the pianist, who I didn't know but I had seen. And I said, okay, let's take it into something else. I was like going into, a Latin. And And I'm looking at him, and I said, why isn't he looking at me? He was blind.
Wow.
I didn't know. I didn't know. I mean, he was a more young man, and he always looked like that. Man, the guy just went into it. He was listening and playing, and to me that was like, wow, it's all about listening. He didn't even have to look at me for me to say, okay, now you do this. I said Latin, this, that, and then I looked and I said, the guy was blind. Now it's rare to have an experience like that. You have to go very far with it. Oh, you're using your feet now,
Right.
But it was all part of my formation into this, telling stories and stuff like that, and communicating with the musicians who I didn't know couldn't even see me. So you learn. So that was the first 19 years of my life when I had just left India, immigrated to America, not as a tap dancer. I was not tapping. So my experience in that was like, oh yes, tap dancing, yes, Fred Astaire, and that's not putting it down, because a lot of the world where y'all are all traveling now, their first connections was with the films also.
Absolutely.
Everywhere. So Fred Astaire and the films and Donald O'Connor and all these, that was mega. That was the beginning of tap dancing reaching all over the world, where now tap dancing is. So it's it's amazing. Tap dancing is evolving amazingly. So I think all that part of it is being appreciated by everybody, in the sense that everybody can bring their story. We're coming back to the story part. When Chuck Green was saying, tell a story, man, it's like, for me it's that song I was telling you the other day. I have a song in my heart, and with a certain music I want to express that song, and it comes out in my dance. And it's interesting to see what's happening. The Japanese, of course, they're very into the jazz, but look at all the different countries bringing their own influences, So one can no longer say, hey, this is better than that. It's impossible. You're better than him? Why?
Right.
And for me that was always an issue. That was always an issue. I'm the greatest. I'm here. You know what? Fine. But I always hoped for tap dancing to, in fact, I wrote articles about it, being like artists. Look at the painters. Jimmy used to say to me, Jimmy Slide, used to say to me, he didn't know in what mold to put me, like, so to speak, when people asked him questions, he'd say, well, are you dancing with her, or whatever. People asked him, if they asked him, I don't know. And once I heard him say, she's an impressionist. And I thought to myself, what does he mean? Why is he saying that about me? I'm a jazz dancer, But he was trying to, and his words, and I started thinking about that, and I said, yes, it's like painters. Everybody's in painting. Is Picasso better than Monet? I mean, you know what I mean?
What is that?
So why can't tap dancers reach a point where the artists can be appreciated and all hang in the Tap Hall of Fame? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's. I mean, it shows. That's why even when you guys came here, Paris Tap Reunion, in one of the little things I had written and sent out to people, saying, "This is the fan éventail. This is you say a whole fan of different artists. I mean, we didn't have that many, but we were still all different.
Yeah.
Hey, okay, you're better than me. For whom? Someone said, oh, I love you. Thank you. So it's all that. I mean, tap offers all that to us as artists, and I think that's great. I think that's, hey. So, but everyone has a lot to learn, and now it's more and more people tapping, so there are fewer jobs, and everybody needs to. That's part of it. That's part of it. So I'll come back to when I arrived in Paris, because it's the jazz connection that will come back into play here. When I arrived here, we arrived, my family. Leela was just being born, and we were here. We were going to stay 1 year and go back to America, and we didn't. And then Leela was born. So we said, oh, our 2 children are here in Paris, and Peter was working. Peter's my husband, who's also interesting because he's followed this tap Renaissance, and he's followed it from the wings, taking pictures for the last 35 years, you know? Yeah. It's interesting. So I arrived in Paris, and Leela was born, and I needed to move, you see, because by the time I left India and dancing and went to America, many things happened in America, not very happy things. Father died, all kinds of stuff in America, and I only stayed there 4 years really before we came to Paris with the family. So in America, when I was there, I didn't dance. I didn't dance at all. See, my dance came back from India. I didn't dance. Oh my God, funny. Shucks. Voila, I did other things to earn a living. We had money. And dancing was not important. I couldn't dance because it was not a happy time. So dancing still remains a happy time for me. So I'm coming back to that. I can't dance when I'm sad, you know? Because this is something I'll say for the whole world. For me, when I tap danced, it was my moments, they were my moments of freedom. Now people say, I want to be free, but people say I want to be free because they don't want to do choreography and want to jam or improvise. For me, it was my abandon to the music. And when that's why I always, with the school that I ran for many years, I had 400 students, American Center, all kinds, all ages, and every event we had, the kids, everybody danced with the greatest jazz musicians that were in Paris or passing through. The greatest, the biggest musicians, who loved this involvement, you see? So, so listening to, continuing with the jazz and the listening and the music, when I was able to do my nightclubs, because I went into the, not nightclub dancing like in America, little jazz club, because there was no other venue. You know, there were big musicals and stuff. There wasn't even that many musicals in France. Now it's opening up and stuff. I was not a Broadway dancer. I never learned all that. And I was interested in this rhythmic aspect. And that's when, of course, as fate would have it, Jimmy appeared in my life. And I appeared in his. That's interesting too. Because at that point, Jimmy Slide had left America, not left, but he was leaving America, like a lot of the jazz musicians, and coming to Paris and Europe because they were appreciated here, and like they were not appreciated there. As simple as that. But I'll leave that story for those who write about, you know, I mean, I'm not talking too much about Jimmy Slide's life, because he had a life. His story will be written soon. Talking about when our paths crossed here. By that time, I was wanting to dance again, and I just started. I had a friend and said, let's go and take lessons. And I said, okay. We did some jazz lessons. And then she said, there's this French woman is teaching American tap dancing. And I said, tap dancing? I mean, you know, at the time, because tap dancing was Fred Astaire in the movies.
Yeah.
It was this polished thing that didn't connect with. Didn't connect with that. You appreciated, you admired, but how could we ever do that and walk with hats and walk with canes? And we didn't do that, you know? So we went to this class. My friend said, come on, we'll go for the exercise. And there's this lady teaching this class. I'll make it quick. She had three dances that she taught to make a living. 3 dances. And she was in business for 20 years. I don't know. Very sweet lady and everything. But, you know, you went in the class and you learned the first dance, second dance, and the third dance. Yeah. Memorized it. And there was this pianist who played home. I don't know. The thing is, what struck me, so I went into this class. My friend was gay and Leela was a baby, so I went and like learned these dances and stuff. But something bothered me. Something bothered me. And this I'm only telling you because this pushed me and strengthened my mind. And it also strengthened who and where I went in the dance. You see. Because everything, I had a lot of these little pieces that were around me, and I tried, and then I started moving the pieces and trying to fit them together so I could make sense of this, like a puzzle. And like I say, has become my method of teaching and choreographing. I make elements, and it's just, I'm not saying because I'm great or not great, this is what I do. I make elements, musical phrases, and sometimes I push it and it goes odd here or odd there. But from that oddness, you know, it's interesting because another idea comes and then the oddness is not that odd anymore, you know, because it kind of fits in right there. You know, so, you know what, I didn't like that part, so I said, and this is just the musical interpretation of how I hear the music percussively. And I'm not doing all this stuff, I'm hearing the music percussively. I'm not interfering with the music. I'm not interfering. And you go what has that got to do with the musical theme? So, I mean, all this stuff was making my own tapestry in my mind, you know, coming together. So I studied with this teacher. I mean, I went back once a week, and okay, you know. But what I found, all these negative things, instead of saying, that's negative shit, I'm gone, helped me to, again, push the pieces around in my mind, in my determination somewhere, because I did do it in the end. The teacher liked me. You know why she liked me? Because of this whole class of 35 people, whatever she was teaching, I was the only one dancing it. Because I was coming to it as a dancer. So even she said, Blue Moon, do, da, da, dee. So everybody is studying whatever the step was. I'm just saying anything, da, dee, da, do. The trouble is, when everybody left or we had a party or something, oh, y'all are tap dancing, tap dance. Nobody, they did the dance they learned by heart, but they couldn't do it if they didn't have Blue Moon playing. You see, all this like, so it was constricting.
Yeah.
I mean, how silly.
Yeah.
The dance is this, you know, so you, Blue Moon, you can do Blue Moon. Come on. I don't know. Blue Moon, I'm letting you do it. But not groovy.
Oh.
Just put some steps together. Blue, okay, follow me. Blue Moon, da 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 dee dee, right, dee da. A lot of repetition. Da 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 dee da. Don't get groovy. Da dee da da dee da dee da. Turn, turn, turn. Now do it faster. Da 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 dee 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 da da. Yes, da 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 dee da dee 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 da 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 da. Turn, 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 turn. Dance number one.
Huh.
You know? Okay, but if you didn't have Blue Moon, they couldn't do it. So everything was connected in a funny way, and that was not what I wanted. So I still didn't like tap dancing. And then the problem is, but when I was doing it, I was going da da, you know, that's why I said I wanted to be, because we are, you know, I was coming as a dancer.
Yeah.
And she saw that, and she said, come here, come in the front. I'm like, oh God, come in the front. And she took off. And she asked me to teach her class. You know what a shock I got? I had studied, I was there for 6 months, once a week, and she asked me to teach the class.
Wow.
So for me, that was like, what kind of a dance is this? I mean, and then when I would come home and I was like, oh my God, this has nothing to do with the music. But those were all the only things I had that this person gave to hundreds of people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they learned 3 dances and they did that. And they went home and they were all so happy. Wonderful. But that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I kind of taught because I was flattered. Like, why is she asking me? But the more I taught, the more I felt that doesn't go with this music at all, you know? So that's when I rented a studio and I started my own introspection into this form, thinking like, wow, you know, that should be like, and I didn't have the basics. I had to memorize things.
Yeah.
You know, it's like someone telling someone, you know, Frère Jacques, dormez-vous, and they learn this tune and they can play piano.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to show up and say da da da, that was not the point for me. So I guess inside I was trying to get deeper into something and I did. So I started. I rented the studio and I brought my music. Brought Leela as a baby. She sat on the floor. Maybe that's why she went into storm. She was banging stuff on the floor. I don't know. But it was my chemin, my path.
Yeah.
And I rented the studio. I practiced and practiced. What did I practice? Triples. What are triples? I loved the sound of. This is what I did. I mean, this is what I found that was the loveliest thing that I liked. Because for me, no fancies, I did this for hours. Because, and then it for me it was like, so it was always related to some instrumentation, you know?
Yeah.
Then I would bring my jazz music and say, okay, and it just became little phrases, you know?
Cool.
It was the way I started. What can I tell you? I'm not saying I'm this, that, or the other, but that's the way I started.
Yeah.
And I practiced that for a long time. Then I was visiting New York. Like I said, I visited Bob Audie, I visited Jerry Ames, someone told me. I visited Henry Latang's studio. I was freaked out. I was freaked out. 40 people, and these are Broadway hopefuls. Henry came on teaching his Broadway dance.
Yeah.
You know, I heard Smiley's doing that in Tokyo. I said, it's Henry Latine's dance. And everybody was wearing big heels, and they were all on this linoleum floor, and I said, break dances, that. And I was like, and I'm following there, and then Henry took me to a private room, because his wife said, you're from Paris, you go there with Henry in the private room. It'll cost you that much. And you know, but it was still, I was still being faced. It was wonderful, but I was bleeding. My feet were bleeding. I couldn't do that. I was in high heels. And what surprised me the most, and Henry would come into the class, he would sit down on the piano, da-da-da-da-da-da, and everybody was gone. 40 people, and I was like, wow. And I was shocked in my own mind by there was no wood at the time, at this one place, two places, I don't know. There was no wood, and I seemed to think that you needed wood. Maybe because the studios here had wooden floors, and I don't know. I'm just saying that's how it was. And the sound of the tap on the wooden floor made me happy. Whereas this was a question of memorizing and dancing and music. And I was quite perturbed. I was a bit freaked out, and I said, but that's not what I want. You know, I'm going to be a Broadway dancer. And I saw them, that's where I first saw Gregory Hines come into the, and Maurice was there. We have pictures there with Afro, and one day Gregory taught the dance, one day Maurice, then somebody else. And I was like, who's that, you know? I didn't know. And he would, the same, they would do the dances, and I was sweating, and I just was in the back with, they told me going by Cuban tap shoes, Cuban heels. It was wow. So I came back here thinking like, oh dear, you know. Okay, but whatever I remembered a little bit, I went back to my studio and I started dancing there, put my own music. Okay, I continued. And then, since I always loved bringing people together, always. I hated to do something, me, I, me, mine. So I would include a friend, you know, 2 or 3 people. Come on, because there was something to be done in the sharing. There was something to be heard with the 3 sounds. There was a lot of stuff that went into my brain, like whatever I needed from something, you know. So I had one friend who came, 2 friends. All of a sudden there were like 8 people, friends would come, and they'd teach a class. So here I am, my first studio is in one of these pictures somewhere in the other room. Teach a class, and we'll do what you want. So by that time I was looking at books and went to New York a couple of times, but by that time I was really, really into these little basics I had. Like a drummer or somebody else, you know, you learn, and now he's playing, and he started, and now he's saying, always coming back to the bass. Because this is home. When they say going home, where are you going? Outside or going home? So all this was part of the learning process, you know? Learning, teaching process. So I was doing that. And then I said, oh, okay, I'll teach a class. It was funny, you know, I put a big sign on right, tap dancing, whatever, 2 Capizio taps. And people just started coming in this little studio. It was, you know, in fact, some of the other students who were in that other class, they said, we can't, you know, oh. That's what I started, okay? I mean, that's what I was doing, that's all. And having fun. Having fun, wow. And then getting better in the sense like, I was practicing all the time, you know, really practicing these basics. And then, wow. So a friend of mine, because I was still going to the jazz clubs, I'd seen Michael Silver in the jazz club. I knew these musicians like from there, but I didn't have to. I'm not a tap dancer. I was not. I was teaching a little tap claquette, you know. And there was this showing, a screening of some rare jazz films, and I said, "Oh yeah, let's go." Big theater in Paris. And there in South Playa, there was this screening of this film called Les Aventuriers de Jazz. I think now people know about it. It's passed on YouTube, whatever. It was by these two French people, jazz directors and musicians, and there was a big group association called the Hot Club de Jazz de France. They had these hot clubs in the big cities and jazz clubs, and okay, all that was happening, very jazz oriented, but in the cellar. So here I am in the cellar. I mean, you know, okay, but we went to the show, and they had photo with George Benson, beautiful films, and then there was this Joe Jones, all kinds of stuff, and there was an intermission. He said, In the intermission, we're sitting there waiting for the film to continue so we could go home. Michael Silver walks up on the stage, on this little stage in front of the screen. The screen was down by then. He walks up with his snare drum, and I said, "Oh, that's the Michael we saw in the club." I didn't know it. I mean, I knew I had seen him, but that was it. And he sat down, Michael, one hi-hat and one snare. And then all of a sudden, this man comes out. Slim man. What do you call him?
Bell-bottoms.
Bell-bottoms.
Yeah.
Bell-bottom pants, some kind of velvet little waistcoats, slim man. And he comes in and he starts dancing and going this side and that side. And they came together, and I was just like, because everything he was doing made sense to me. You know, and so while he was dancing, I was hearing the tunes. The most beautiful dance I'd ever seen, and I had never seen this before. And I clapped, went out, and I said, like, I was speechless, you know. I was like a little like, wow. So I said to my friend and Peter, I said, I was very shy, I'm coming from India, a shy person, and I said, I must talk to this man, you know. And they said, oh, okay. So I went out to the bar and there he was, standing in the bar, having coffee, whatever. And Michael was next to him, and I came there and I waited, and I said, I must talk with him, like, maybe he'll teach me something, you know? So I waited. In all my timidity, I swear I was terrified, and I was getting more terrified because he was there and he saw this person behind him who was waiting there, and he finally looked around and said, yes. And I thought I would like, So I said what has now become a famous phrase, will you be my guru? And he went, will you be my guru? And I was like, oh God. And I thought I had messed the whole thing. I said, oh. And he looked at me and said, guru? And I said, you know, I know him so well now, but I must, you know, guru? And I said, well, I just teach a little tap. I don't know anything. I mean, whatever I teach, but I really don't know anything. And would you teach me? He said, give me your number. I said, okay, it's my telephone number. And he said, I'll call you. And he dismissed me, so to speak. I was like, oh. So, voila, I waited a year. Somewhere, every day I went into my studio, and I was practicing every day. No, nothing. Then Michael had given me his number. Yeah, you take my number, you call. Because at that time, Jimmy was kind of hanging up in Michael's apartment. So I waited like almost a year or something, and I called this number. Even that took me almost a year myself to like, and of course, whoever answered the phone said, "Hey, do you know what time it is?" It was like noon, you know. So it's like, oh God, I'm doing this all wrong, you know. I said, I was looking for, I didn't even know who I was looking for. I didn't know who it was. He didn't tell me his name.
Yeah.
I said, you know, the other night at the Sampia last year, I didn't know. Blah, blah, blah. So that was funny, man, now that I think of it. And I waited, and another, I don't know, but I was always practicing there in that studio. And then he called one day. The phone rang, and he got, and I was like, hello. And I was like, oh, you know, and he said, oh, you said you had a studio somewhere. I said, yes, I practice at the studio on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He said, oh, I might come next Tuesday, and you know, what time? I said, I'm there at 2 o'clock. And that happened about 8 times, and he never showed. So I just like, this is, okay, this, whatever, you know. So, but I was still there every Tuesday and Thursday, and one day I was just working, and I heard the door, like a creak, you know. And I was like, because it was a small little studio, quiet place, and he said that I opened the door and he was standing there, like, you know, like listening, like he has been doing, known to do here and there. And I was like, oh wow, please come in, like, you know. He was standing there listening to me practicing, you know, whatever I was practicing, I can't remember. But so he came in, and I said, oh wow, and wonderful, and I realized at the time that, so he came in, and he was very jaunty, and he said, oh, I said, you have to teach me something, I don't know. And he said, dance. So I danced. I did what I did. I danced, and he was there. And then he kind of said, yeah, well, yeah, you know, let's go have tea. Let's go have tea. I was like, okay, let's go have tea. So I backed him, I said, okay, whatever you want, I win it. Yeah. This is the guru I wanted, you know. I didn't know anything else. I've never had a teacher. So we went and had tea. And he talked about a lot of things. And he said, let's have tea again. And every time I would go to the studio, I'm hoping he'll teach me some breadcrumbs. Give me breadcrumbs, they go with tea, you know, but God, he never gave me breadcrumbs till he was sure of what he wanted to do, I suppose, I don't know. So we had tea, and that's how I learned all about tap dancing. People, the history. He would tell me about Eddie Wilson, this one, that one in America, how hard he had it in America, how he's, you know, I said he had a chip on his shoulder, like, so to speak, you know, how hard it was for the black musician, the black dancer to enter into films, and because he had tried to go to LA. In fact, he had worked with Bing Crosby and his children, and thought he would go into films and stuff. That never happened. And then he was supposed to meet somebody, and he walked from God knows where to LA to the town. He walked because he had nothing, and nobody was there. You know, things like that. So I was hearing all these stories. So I became, in this short period of time, totally immersed in the history of jazz tap dancing. I won't even call it jazz tap, of the tap dancers. And I didn't even have any steps yet, you know what I mean? But that was that. I became that. Yes, fine. Listen, I didn't know all this. I learned it all. And I realized how hard he was. He didn't have any money. He was not in a good frame of mind. He was going from place to place, you know, in Europe, and trying to find a place where he could, you know, maybe open a studio or teach. I think he worked with some people in Finland, I can't remember really. He said, oh, I'm going this. He kept it all, you know. He had no papers to be here, so he would come, visit, and go somewhere else. And every time he came, we had tea, talked. He came, he was part, at that point, he was part of the family. He came, children, Peter, we were there. And, you know, and we were learning about him a little bit, but he was still quite distant, not just with the whole scene. And, it was an amazing, total immersion into the art form.
Yeah.
Who could ask for anything?
Mm.
And then he said, I'm doing next week, Michael and I we have a little gig. And I said, okay, we'll come, I'll come and bring people and all that. God, we went to this gig. It was somewhere in the 18th or 19th district, arrondissement of Paris. I can't remember. We had to find, and it was like this little place in the back. It was like a cloth curtain. And there were some wooden benches. It was like some kind of, I don't know, meeting hall maybe for prayers. I don't know what it was. It was some place. There was nothing on the door. And there was a little wooden thing. Michael was playing there. And Jimmy was dancing. There were a few people sitting like us on these wooden benches. And this genius, this lord of the dance, can't do this. Yes, we have to do something. You know, I'm not a missionary or I didn't take care of Jimmy. I mean, it's not that. We're just like, this Paris, man, let's find a place, you know? So it intrigued us so much, and voila, and from then on I said, like, no, we got to, that led me to go into business with the other person, forming a cultural center, thinking, Jimmy's going to be here. This is his place, which was wonderful. And then he realized he loved me. I mean, he loved me, I loved him, he loved the family. I mean, you know, it's not like, oh, he loved me. It's not that.
Yeah.
We had some, I don't know, we connected somewhere. I would have done anything he asked. Anything meaning what? You know, anything. It's not like, oh, I'll do anything for you. No, anything. That's it. I asked a couple of times, I requested, what are these steps called? Because we didn't even know. I mean, that lady didn't know. Nobody knew what a shuffle was. Nobody, and I needed to know.
Yeah.
So all the stuff I needed to know, I would, when I was sitting with you, and I said, you know, did that, what is that? Oh, shuffle. I said, did it, slap. You know, that's why I say slap. Jimmy Stein said slap. And when people said, that's not a slap, that's a flap. Okay, you know. Yeah. I learned it from the master. He said slap. I said slap. You know, I was his guru. He was my guru. When I really, this is going to be, he's going to be my guru, so then I have to be the disciple. You know? So I became his disciple. In my own Indian way, okay. And then he would come, he would come to the studio. And that is one of the first pictures. Tell me when to stop talking this story. That's one of the first pictures when he actually came to the studio, the little studio I had, and said, okay, you know, okay, this, and I was just like, and I was dance. First he would tell me dance, so I danced, and then I think he was like, you know what, like, caught me in a turn. He said, do it that way, you know, stuff like that. And Peter was there. He came because he was now a friend. Yeah. And that started, and so we documented it. I mean, we just took a picture, documented. We took a picture. It's an amazing man, you know.
It's a gorgeous picture.
It's a gorgeous picture, and he was there. You know, and he caught me in one of my wild turns, and you can see his M, and he just said, like, I'm turning. He went, you know, and I said, what? And you know, so that was my learning with him. So whatever he showed me, I did. I did. Voila. So that was one of the beginnings. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, and then from there, I had a cultural center which lasted 1 year with many teachers, and it didn't work. And then I went to the American Center for Students and Artists, which doesn't exist anymore. It lasted for a long time. And I built up what they call in the press the Temple of Tap, because everybody was coming. Beautiful studios. Oh, I was like, oh my God, beautiful studios. My jazz was there, my music. And I taught everybody, children, grown-ups, people. Loved it. Had started a small tap group called the Paris Tap Dance Company. But it was not like, you all have been with tapestries, so you all have been in real intense working. This was, maybe we'll have a gig to do, come, let's get together. You know, it was that kind of a little company that was starting, you know. And then I was at the American Center, and I went to Henry Pillsbury, who was not the owner, the director at the time. And I said, you know, and Jimmy had gone back. He was not there all the time. But every time he left, he would send me a postcard. I call them my postcards from the edge. Keep it going, keep swinging, always, Jimmy. I have like postcards like this. That was his way, you know, like, keep it going, keep it going. Okay, I kept it going. And we were doing, and then that was the first big concert we did at the American Center. This was Théâtre Live, but the American Center was the same, and it was not this. And it was Jimmy and Michael, and we had other people too. And that was, it's about time. That's, you know, because then we were friendly, and we were talking about, it was not just like, oh, we really started talking about, let's do shows, and I arranged a concert tour, you know, and he was thrilled. Why? Because
I feel like a little time.
I had the musicians that he wanted, and that I knew would be good for this, and it was an evening of jazz and band, and he said, we gotta do this. And we wanted very much to include singers, because singing was very important to him and to me too, you know. So we did include a wonderful singer when we could. We wanted to do a whole thing like John Lennox with singers and dancers. It was totally magic. Totally magic. Why? Because people had never seen this before. I'm not saying, oh, people haven't seen. People had never seen this before.
Period.
Simple. I mean, it's not like I am in my, nah. And kept it simple. I had my own idea of how I wanted it to appear, you know. Because I'm dancing Jimmy's life, you know. And he never wanted to be tied down to anything, steps, no. So I had to go with that. And that was fine. Certain moments, but we need something to come together. So we would call them, what do you call that?
Jump offs or
like in a pool.
diving?
No, the thing itself.
Springboard.
The springboard.
Yeah.
It was like a springboard. So these little phrases were like a springboard into something. You know, So I started putting little things together, and he would comply. And then he would say, well, okay. And kept it simple. I don't mean easy, because I know I say that, but this is very simple. People say, I don't understand. Simple, meaning not complicated. And we fell into it. And that was my learning experience. And that was really a learning experience which I must talk about, because I never knew what he was going to do. Never knew. So if I want to be on stage And he wanted me to be with him because he said, "You'll dance with me. I want you to dance with me." I was like, "Oh my God, you know, wow, okay, just dance." I said, "Okay." So I just danced, but he danced and I danced and he danced and I listened and was ready for anything. I had to be ready for anything because he would say something like this, okay? Like, just like da-da-da-da-da, okay, so I said, yes, okay. He said, "Oh, you got that?" I said, "Yeah, you know." So I got it. And so when it came to showtime, and we said, I practiced that a million times.
Yeah.
So we get on stage and he comes on and we are and I was like, okay, you know what I mean? So I had to, that was my learning experience. I had to be ready for anything. Ready for anything. You know? So, hey. But we both, it was interesting. I had to put myself on the same mindset. You know, what do you call that?
Wavelength.
Wavelength, right. Yeah, I had to be on the same wavelength. And if he was angry or had, what's on, I had to be around there and doing something to make the people not think he's angry for any reason, you know. I mean, it's so I had a learning experience, you know, total learning experience, and it was a wonderful collaboration because he came to count on that, and that's why those little things where he says, "Oh yes, well you're right," you know, and it was joyous most of the time, totally joyous. I could never be totally free because I had always to be on the ball. I couldn't just say, "Hey, I'm going to dance," because he had to dance, you know. I had to come back. What's the reason for this? This is the Lord of the dance, you know. So he's dancing. Give him everything he needs. Great music, Michael, this, that. It was amazing show. Amazing. And then when he got it going and he was there, and then we did stuff together, and I would be moving all around because I never knew where, what, and he would say, "Where are you?" I was like, "Oh, there you are." It's like, you know. So I started doing those playful things just to, you know, dance, and then he would, "Come on," you know. So we built up this lovely collaboration, lovely dancing that was filled with spontaneity, it was filled with jazz, it was filled with Jimmy's life. Sarah Petronio, I mean, you know. So this was really wonderful. It was fine, it was wonderful. And when there were times when he was not in, or upset, or whatever, he had his own, or I would say, "Please, Jimmy, we have to do this together to come in because the lights are going to come this way." And if he was feeling ornery, he'd say, and he would not come in. So I would come in, and then he saw that I was in, he would come in. And then he would be like, "Okay, take that," or something, and I would like, "Oh," and that was, you know, even all that, like that cake or something that came from somewhere was almost like a reaction, you know, to something. And he loved that. He loved that, and I would see him smiling, because when I let go and said, like, you know, he loved it. So he loved that meeting of the, you know, the clashing. Like, because he loved to teach lessons, no? So it was wonderful. It was a total learning experience. It was beautiful. And then, of course, Black and Blue Ham. We did this many places in Switzerland, here, there, and the other. It was always spontaneous, always full of surprises. He danced just amazingly. I danced beautifully, let's put it that way. And he would say that to all them. I do not want you to dance like me. I do not want you to dance like me. And I said, you know, because most people later on would come to my class and say, can you teach me Jimmy Slide? And I never did that.
Yeah.
Because I never did that, not because I couldn't do that. I never did that because that's him. You know, at the time. Now, of course, it has to spread and go on. I never did that. And he kept saying, I don't want you to dance like me. You're a woman, dance like a lady. Which I was doing anyway, you know. So there was, and you know, and all that was the learning process, the teaching par la suite. Teaching that later, because Michael Silva said to me once, he said, when doing a sound check, and he said, why don't you practice what you teach? I said, oh, you know, I said, I thought the expression was practice what you preach, you know. So we had all these little like things and stuff like that going on. It was a joyous experience. It was great. It was great. So voila.
Was there a time where your relationship changed between guru and apprentice?
It was. I wouldn't say changed. It didn't change. It evolved. It evolved. The guru and the apprentice part was my I wanted to learn steps. I wanted to learn more. He didn't want to teach steps. Maybe he taught steps later, fine. He didn't want that. I think what he wanted was, for me, he must have seen something in me, you know. Of course he saw something. He didn't dance with anybody. I mean, it was good. The relationship was a lovely relationship. And I think he wanted me to find my own and not be so much like the disciple. So the disciple and guru was basically in the beginning. And it was important for me because that's where I came from. When you have a guru, you don't just learn a mantra, you know, you learn how he is. You learn how the guru is. You learn how the teacher is. I respected this man greatly. Respected his art. So that's the and that's where I went as the disciple, learning. You know, okay. If he said, well, let's go and have tea, it's like, I didn't want to have tea, you know. I said, again, tea, I mean, you know. But in my mind, he needs tea, then give him tea. So I give him tea, he comes back, and he gives me 2. So tea for 2 more. I'm so sorry, I didn't really want to go. Oh no, Sarah, shut up. So anyway, no, it's all that. No, I think that just dissipated because then Black and Blue opened and then he was doing other things. Then he went away, did other big concerts. And also, you know, at that time, we did some of the jazz festivals and stuff. And he was just such an amazing dancer. And so I had to be there, because when we did do things, so that magic happened. He was happy, I was dancing. So it was that kind of thing. And it's like, oh, we weren't we weren't Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. Not at all. He was Jimmy Slide, and I was Sarah Petronio, you know. And that was very important to me also, to not fall into, master, you know. It was not that kind of a guru. It was in the whole mind, learning, respect. So it brings me back to today. Respect your teachers. Respect your students. You know, so that was the whole learning process. That's what I try to give to my students, you know, because when there's a respect, there's a communication. That's the guru you respect. Guru respects the disciple. And he doesn't say, no, you don't come here. Then he feels that with this person, I can say certain things, and this person will take it and go somewhere good with it. That kind of respect. So when I teach it, that's why I miss so much now. You know, I feel teachers are getting a rough deal because people don't stick with one teacher. You know, they have to learn it all. That's wonderful, fine. That's one way. I'm not saying that's wrong. But I miss that I think it's important. That's why people say, oh, my teacher, because just your question, you reach a point where the teacher is able to give you more than steps, you know, and even like take you and say, move this way, you know, and you won't say, oh, somebody touch me. No, you take the student and you say, this way, because you know there's something you're giving, you know. So it's all that. It's on that and more, and voila. Then he left, went to America, then started trying to stand on my own 2 feet. And that was amazing for me, because I was able to be me. I was able to be me. Now, at some point you can't be with the guru forever, you know, it's not possible. Because when he leaves you, what do? Beg? No. And when he left, I started the jazz dancing in the club scene here. It didn't exist. Like we were starting to talk about that. There were no venues. And I thought, what a perfect venue this is, you know, because we always went to the clubs. So the first club was here in Montparnasse. Lovely, big club, lovely. And I spoke to the guy and he said, oh yeah, come, yeah, you can come. And of course you can't come because there's rug or some other nonsense. That's why I built the floor you danced on the other day. It's got some little scrapes and stuff. It's been around a long time. Built a floor that could fit, that fitted together. Yeah. And I asked him, I'll come. And it was in February. Freezing cold here in Paris. It was snowing. And I had my first Sarah Petronio tap and jazz evening, at the Petit Journal Montparnasse. And I said, oh man, it's snowing. Nobody will come. Nobody will come. You can't move in there. And we went. I had the best musicians. I had Maurice Vander, Pierre Michelot. Oh my God, the great. And I said, okay, I'm going to dance on this little piece of wood. And 200 people showed up in the club. And I said, my gosh, a lot of students, no? And by that time I had a lot of students, and I was teaching. We were dancing on the streets sometimes for events like Fête de la Musique, the Day of Music, where people can go out on the streets and play music. And I said, I collected 100 people. I said, we're going out into the street. We play music too, you know. It's all that. It's all that, and we did, and everybody danced, and it was becoming more and more, and the other teachers forming and doing stuff, and so I guess a lot of students and came, a lot of students, and brought friends, and it was for me. I felt I'm free. And what was important to me was not to be the best tap dancer ever or anything. The musicians, the music, filling me with this so I could say what was all in me, all these little pieces and all these songs. And I chose melodies and themes and started that was when I first started to put percussion and rhythms, like I was telling you about, themes together. At the American Center I was working, I heard Monty Alexander, who I loved, and I heard Monty Alexander play Tricketism. I'm listening to him swing Tricketism, yeah? I'm standing there and I said, you know, look, listen to the melody. But even PT has to mean something, you know, because if you just put it down, where are you getting the melody from? For me, the melody is on the breath, like if I was playing this instrument, you know? So trying to make, you have only these two tap shoes, trying to make a whole night of tap dancing and still have some kind of connection with the music. Make music. So for me, instead of saying da 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 da, for me it's da da. I hear it that way. But if I want to say da, then I have to make it happen, no? Da da so you have to. It's your song, it's your breath, and all that. So that was all coming together, you know. Even that, I mean, I could go da 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 da, but that was not what I wanted to do. Da da da. So, you know, that's why I say it's the song that sings inside of me. So that's what I was doing, and for me, I just wanted to be me. I wanted to be me. Who am I? I'm still talking about Jimmy Stein. I'm well into my 60s, and I'm still talking. Who am I?
Yeah.
You know, even at that time, I needed to be me. So my little me was me. Me. That's why even with students I said, who are you? You know, of course when you dance choreography it's a different thing, but the solo is like you. It comes back to storytelling. That's what he means. Who are you? What is your particular style or message? If you want. And for me, I started dancing all night in a club. Oh, I'm surprised I didn't get bored. You know what I mean? So you had to go with, that's why I started doing soft shoe. Because for me, it wasn't because I didn't want to put on my tap shoes, it's because it offered me the brushes. It offered me the sound of the brushes. Simple as that. So I could do ti, ti, da, da, ti, ti, da, da, da. You know, it offered me another sound, which I would do soft, and so percussively you have the drumsticks. For me, soft shoe offered me the brushes that the drummer was doing. You know, and voila, and I was able to feel abandon in the dance. You know how hard that is. When you can be yourself and you're lost, and you're not lost, you're never lost. You lose yourself to the music. You abandon yourself without like abandoning yourself. I mean, that's not what I'm saying. You abandon yourself. To me, that's being free. It's like, hey, I'm free, I can do what I want. And, you know, do. Me? Well, and then you end and you finish the music. When I did the jazz club in Portland, Oregon, during the Portland Tap Festival, and she knew I was doing jazz, and then I did the jazz club. Great musicians. Darren Clendenin played piano, Ron Steen, wow, from the club, and the bass player. It's like we almost fell in love with each other on that stage, because he played and he gave me, he respected me as a dancer, and I respected him as a music. So we made harmony. That's why I was saying that with me, together, you know. But together, and after he said, wow, it's like making love to music. And I said, oh, you know, whatever. So, that's me.
That's wonderful.
That's
And,
me.
like, you know,
I don't know. I can talk and I can go on and on, but that's it.
I only have one more question.
Please,
That's all.
Ask me a question other than.
Okay. How do you get to the point where you're able to abandon? Are there certain things that need to happen before you can abandon? Before
Yourself?
you can lose? Yeah.
I think, yes, of course. But, I'm saying this, but I have made mistakes many times because of circumstances or something or the other, someone saying something. The ice machine, always in the jazz club. You're doing this, something. Abandon yourself to that. So I would relate to that. Oh, ice machine, cold, yeah, But how can you abandon yourself to dance? Which I was not complete. I did a little bit the other day, but I was not able to completely. Setting up your, what are you going to do? What do you want to do now? What tune you want to do? You and I.
Sentimental Mood? Is that too?
I don't know. Sing it. What's the tune? Too slow, too complicated for this. Just do something that we can be more explicated. That's quite a beautiful tune.
Sorry.
Let me put that on the. Sorry. Oh.
What have you said? What
song is that?
Bemsha Swing.
Bemsha Swing. Because if you don't know the name, don't choose it.
Right. How about...
because you might want to say that and tell him, say, boomba, and he's like, what?
What is this? I've never heard of that.
All that is part of how you set it up and abandon.
Yeah.
Because I made all those mistakes.
Okay.
It's not a mistake, it's not the easiest way. Tell me more.
How about...
What are we doing here today? We're dancing, we're talking, I don't know. So,
sharing.
what do you feel like?
Trading. Want to get on the same train?
Why not? We're going from A to Z? Or we're just taking the A?
Hopefully just the A. I'm not sure about mine. No.
Sing it without clicking. See, already this is like just a thing, huh?
Yeah.
Like even this, all the time, we hear it all the time on stage, Try to not do that, to still have that inside. So it helps us. When I hear it, I would like to say D. I might set it up for a musician, but even that, I may not set it up that way. 1, 2. Even saying that, the 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, you have to give him that. I have to give him that.
Yeah.
Because saying something gets you here. This is coming from outside somewhere. See? You can hear it. D. Let's sing it again. Getting into it. We're trying to explain many things than just this, but so that's how you can abandon yourself, by maybe not already anticipating. I think a lot of trouble happens when we anticipate. because we are in a state of, even looking for a tune. It's like, oh, what tune are we going to do? I don't know. Even for me setting up, I always watched Jimmy. I mean, he always set up that way. He didn't come in and he just didn't. And for me, that's what the drummers do. Get him going. That's abandoning. So you get him going if that's the sound you want. Yes, for this tune, you might need dee, shaka-doo-doo. What sounds? A train. Everything matters to me. A train. Train. A train. Do. Dee, 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 da. Da. Ba, ba, dee, dee, ba, dee, dee, da. Next stop. Oh. Ba, ba, doo, dee, dee, dee. Dee, da. Dee, da. Ba, dee, da. Da, da. Dee, da. Dee, dee, da. Keep it going. No, you keep it going. I'm your drums. I got it. I'm giving you drums.
Yeah.
I'm giving you time. You're dancing on my time. You're dancing on my time. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Don't dance and hear. I was your drummer. We set up, okay, give me drums, but how many people really even listen to what they're doing? Because you're anticipating what you're going to do next. For me, it's the whole thing. I can't anticipate. If I'm setting up the drums and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to be there listening to what they're saying. And the only way I won't bother him or her playing that, I would get into what he's giving me. Because there's lots of time. This is just the beginning. Once it's in there, you will abandon yourself. Set it up. So when you're setting it up with the drummer or the bass player, he's going to be walking with you if you want him to do that. Or he'll play melody. Dong. If he's playing melody, dong. Ding, dong, ding, ding, dong. Then you have to be under him. Because for me, if two people, if you're dancing dong, and he's doing ding dong, ding ding dong, it's putting you into too percussive mode for this tune. Because this tune is, you know? I mean, that's why with some of the percussive tunes you can do that because you're playing the head, you're playing the theme. So much. I would say listen, set up. Unless you have a choreography, that's different. But as a soloist, set up. Maybe you don't want them to interfere with you then. You have a thought in your mind. You have to have a thought. How do I choose a tune? For me, I choose a tune. I've made many bad mistakes, but I know now, for me, I choose something that means something. We talked about words and, last time in Tapestry, people, and I needed the people thought to pass it on to Asia. The people who need people are the luckiest people in the world. Now how do I pass this thought on to this person out there? That's what I wanted to do. So I had someone crossing, exchanging people. Then I'm free to say, dance my people who need people, abandon it too, Not easy. Because outside elements and it's difficult. But, more than doable because you're a great dancer. Great dancer. And you're a sensitive dancer. Now, this is not me telling you anything, but, I mean, I think you can do a little less. Less is more sometimes. And learning that, you know. But you're doing that. So.
It's the anxiety. You just want to fill that space. Yeah.
But then if all music was completely filled, you wouldn't even listen to it. It's too much.
Yeah.
You can't go into a club and hear percussion all night. Unless everybody's like expressing to it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I can go and sit and hear a tap dance and go all night.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I don't know. For me, I can't. You know? So that's not that one shouldn't do that. Just saying, but how does one abandon? By knowing oneself, no?
Yeah.
Learn yourself. See, what do I want to say this evening? Very hard. Very hard. And that's what Jimmy and I did all the time. And that's what I was there, making sure that happened. So, you know, even our dancing was so joyous, and that's why he said nobody will understand us, because we were so loving in the dance. And that's because I made sure that everything would be right for this person, this great dancer. Not everybody will do that, you know, but that's what you learn to do when you're dancing with somebody, you know.
Yeah.
And then when you're dancing alone, how to make everybody be with you, you know. And then you're able to, and that's a joy. And that falls into place. It's enough.